There were 2 wine glasses in the trash. Not in the sink. Not in the dishwasher. In the trash. And not broken either. Just placed there. Gently. Like someone didn't want to leave behind fingerprints. That was Saturday morning. She was still asleep upstairs, tangled in the covers like a teenager after prom. Her phone was dead. Or so she said when she stumbled in at 3:07 a.m., smelling like lime and regret. I hadn't even asked her anything yet. She walked through the door and said, "Nothing happened." Imagine that. You sit alone on the couch for 5 hours, wondering if your wife got kidnapped, and the first thing she says when she sees you is the punchline to a question you didn't ask. Nothing happened. That's how I knew something did. But let me rewind. Not too far. Just a few hours back, to 6:40 p.m. the night before. I was microwaving leftover lasagna when she walked into the kitchen wearing a black satin dress that didn't belong to our budget. Hair curled. Lipstick darker than usual. No jacket. Just goosebumps and overconfidence. She opened the fridge, ignored the lasagna, grabbed a bottle of wine I didn't know we owned, and said, "I won't be late. It's Dale's birthday." No explanation. No invite. Just Dale. Like I knew who the hell Dale was. She poured the wine into a thermos. A thermos. Then she grabbed a tote bag, threw in a charger, a sweater she wouldn't wear, and something else I couldn't see. I asked where the party was. She didn't answer. Just kissed me on the forehead like I was a dog she was hoping wouldn't pee on the rug. She left. And I waited. At 10:30 p.m., I texted her. "You good?" At 12:45 a.m., I tried again. "Want me to come pick you up?" At 2:17 a.m., I stared at the wall so hard I thought it might blink. She came back at 3:07. No shoes. No ring. Just sweat on her temples and a lie in her mouth. I didn't even argue. I just said, "Did you eat?" She said, "Don't start." So I didn't. I just sat there in silence while she took a 5-minute shower and crawled into bed face down, still damp. In the morning, she was all smiles. Made coffee. Hummed a song. Like it never happened. And that's when I found the 2 wine glasses in the trash. Right underneath the receipt for a rideshare that ended nowhere near Dale's house. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Maybe that makes me a coward, or maybe it makes me a strategist. Hard to tell the difference when you're trying to outrun heartbreak with logic. But I needed facts. Not guesses, not feelings. I needed the ugly truth, printed and time-stamped. The receipt in the trash had a logo I didn't recognize. Not Uber or Lyft, something local. One of those small-town rideshare apps that promise cheaper rates and fewer background checks. It had the drop-off time, 2:52 a.m., and a location I'd never heard her mention before. Larchwood and 8th. Not near her office. Not near any bar. Just a residential street on the other side of the city. Middle of nowhere, unless you live there. I sat with that address for an hour, cross-checking it with her past texts, her work calendar, even her Amazon shipping history. Nothing. It was clean. Too clean. So I called the number listed on the receipt. My hands were sweating so badly, I had to wipe the phone screen twice before it registered the touch. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. A man. "Yeah," he said. Voice raspy. Like he'd been sleeping, or yelling, or both. I paused. I hadn't planned what to say. Hey. Sorry to bother you. I found a rideshare receipt from your company. I'm just trying to figure out who might have used it." There was a pause. The kind of pause that tells you more than words. Then he said, "Who is this?" I gave a fake name. Said I was following up on a trip. He asked for the timestamp. I gave it to him. Another pause. Then, "Yeah, I remember that one. Picked up a lady outside Topper's bar. She was alone. Seemed pretty out of it. Real quiet." I asked where he dropped her. Larchwood and 8th. She asked me not to pull into the driveway. Just left her on the sidewalk. No mention of Dale. No mention of a group. No other passengers. Just her. Quiet. Alone. And dropped off in front of a random house she didn't want to be seen entering. I thanked him and hung up, stomach coiled into something sharp and metallic. My mind raced. Maybe she was helping a friend. Maybe she was drunk and didn't want to come home like that. Maybe she had a breakdown. I stacked maybes like sandbags against a flood I knew was coming. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove there. It was still early. Barely 9 a.m. She was upstairs, playing with spoons, humming that same stupid song like she didn't throw our marriage out the window 5 hours earlier. I told her I needed to grab something from the store. She didn't ask what. I don't think she even looked up. It took 17 minutes to get to Larchwood and 8th. I pulled over half a block away, heart banging like a cheap dryer with one shoe inside. The house at the address wasn't anything special. Peeling paint, unmowed grass, a beat-up sedan in the driveway. But what caught my eye was the mailbox. The last name taped to the front with a label maker. Dalton. My stomach dropped. Not Dale. Dalton. A name she had mentioned once, months ago. Said he used to work at her company before he moved on. Just a casual mention over dinner, when I asked why she was late. I barely noticed it then. Now I couldn't think of anything else. I sat in the car for 20 minutes, waiting for something to happen. For a garage door to open. For her to walk out. For a reason to think I was wrong. But nothing happened. Eventually, I drove home. She was in the shower. Her phone was sitting on the nightstand. Face down. No passcode. She stopped locking it a year ago, when we promised transparency. I don't know what I expected to find when I picked it up. But I definitely didn't expect to see a photo from last night, posted to her private story. Not a public one. One of those close friends only deals. And in the background of the photo, poorly lit, half-blurred, caught in a mirror behind her wine glass, was a man I had never seen before. Smiling, shirtless, and right next to him, on the dresser behind the bed, her wedding ring. The moment I saw that photo, something in me didn't break, it melted. Not the loud, cinematic shatter you see in movies. No glass on the floor, no dramatic scream. Just a slow, quiet dissolve. Like an ice sculpture left out in the sun. One minute it's beautiful and full of shape. The next it's just water running across the table, seeping into whatever's closest. I stared at the screen. That private story post. A photo taken in a dimly lit bedroom that definitely wasn't ours. I could see part of a headboard, tall, fake leather. A ring on a dresser. Her ring. And a man's reflection in the mirror behind her. Bare chest, tan lines, phone in hand. He was looking at her like he already owned her, and maybe he did. I wasn't on the close friends list. That hit me harder than anything. I'd only seen the story because she left her phone unlocked and hadn't realized Snapchat defaults to the last view. Dumb luck. Or divine cruelty. I took a screenshot. I didn't know why. Maybe for evidence. Maybe to torture myself later. The sound didn't trigger because her phone was on silent, but my hands shook so hard I nearly dropped it. She came out of the shower 5 minutes later, wrapped in a towel, humming that same off-key song. The one she always sings when she's trying to act normal, like she's in a toothpaste commercial. She smiled at me like we were still married. "I'm starving," she said. "Do we have eggs?" I said nothing, just nodded. My voice would have cracked if I'd tried. She made breakfast like it was any other Sunday. Toast. Scrambled eggs. Even a little garnish of spinach, like she was a Food Network host and not the woman who'd posted a thirst trap from another man's bed. I sat across from her at the table. She was on her phone, laughing at reels, replying to texts. She didn't check Snapchat once. I waited for her to notice. She didn't. That was the moment I realized how invisible I'd become. And yet, I still couldn't bring myself to confront her. I told myself I needed more proof, that it would be smarter to wait. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared that if I said it out loud, if I asked the question I already knew the answer to, then it wouldn't just be in my head anymore. It would be real. Permanent. Something you can't unsay, can't undo. So I played along. Later that afternoon, she said she needed to run errands. Took her keys and left without telling me where. I didn't ask. Instead, I opened her laptop, something I hadn't done in years. I used to think that snooping was a betrayal. Now I know what betrayal actually looks like, and it doesn't involve checking someone's browsing history. Her laptop was clean. Too clean. But I found something, a document in the trash folder, deleted 2 days ago. A list of hotels and day rates. One in particular was highlighted. The same zip code as that house on Larchwood. I Googled the hotel. The Aurora Inn. 3-star. No spa, no pool. Just short stays and check-ins with no ID required. I called, using my best customer service voice, pretending to be from a corporate travel agency doing a booking audit. "Hi. I'm checking to confirm that a guest named Talia checked in on Thursday under corporate billing, possibly under a Dalton or Blake reservation." The receptionist hesitated, then said, "I'm sorry, we don't disclose guest information." I heard a voice in the background. Then she lowered her tone. "Sir, if you're asking about a woman named Talia, she's not here now. But she's been here more than once this month." She hung up before I could say another word. I didn't breathe for a full minute. The air in the room felt like it belonged to someone else. Heavy, rented, full of things I wasn't supposed to know yet. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, her laptop screen lit up with a notification. An email. Subject line: missing you already, face blowing a kiss. Sender: Dalton. Blake at. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. Because in that moment, I saw the truth, not just about her, but about me. She hadn't just stopped loving me. She had replaced me. And I had helped her do it, by pretending everything was fine for far too long. I didn't open the email. I couldn't. I just stared at the subject line like it was a live wire, buzzing on the edge of my sanity. Missing you already, face blowing a kiss. The kind of thing you send someone when you're still high on the night before. Casual. Intimate. Dangerous. For the next 10 minutes, I debated opening it. I hovered the cursor over the subject line, pulled it back, hovered again. My stomach was in knots. Eventually, I shut the laptop without clicking anything. A coward's move, I know, but I felt like even reading it would make it more real. Like his words would somehow crawl off the screen and start repainting my memories in their color. So I did what I always do when I can't face the truth. I spiraled. Quietly, I started Googling Dalton Blake. It was supposed to be simple. Just a LinkedIn page. Maybe a Facebook profile. Something to put a face to the crime. But that's when things turned from betrayal to confusion. There was no Dalton Blake listed on her company's employee page. No old announcements, no LinkedIn posts, no office photos. No tagged birthday parties. Nothing. In fact, the only Dalton Blake I could find was a real estate developer from Michigan. Older guy. Married. Definitely not the shirtless man from her Snapchat story. Wrong age, wrong location, wrong everything. I tried again. Narrowed it down. Dalton Blake, San Diego. Dalton Blake, marketing. Dalton Blake plus startup. Nothing relevant. Then I got desperate. I went back to her laptop and did something I swore I'd never do. I opened her email. Not the inbox. The sent folder. She hadn't deleted anything. The last message she sent him was from 3 days ago. It was short, just 4 words. Same place. No names. Attached was a Google Maps link. Not to the Aurora Inn. Not even to the Larchwood House. Somewhere else. A warehouse. An empty commercial building near the edge of town. The kind of place you pass on the freeway and never wonder about unless you're trying to disappear. I opened the map, stared at the location, and then closed everything. I didn't know what was happening, but it was clearly not just an affair. I could have handled an affair. People cheat. It hurts, but it happens. But this? Secret warehouse meetups with a man who doesn't exist on paper? This was something else. Something I wasn't prepared for. I sat on the couch for an hour, just listening to the fridge hum. When Talia got back from her errands, she kissed me on the cheek like I was her aging uncle and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. A movie. Like we weren't living inside one already. I played along. She picked some dumb rom-com she'd already seen twice. I watched her out of the corner of my eye the whole time. How relaxed she was. How easy it was for her to laugh at punchlines while I sat there, choking on everything I wasn't saying. At one point, she looked over at me and said, "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag her laptop into the room and throw it on the coffee table and demand answers. But I didn't. Instead, I just said, "Yeah, just tired." She nodded, leaned into me, and rested her head on my shoulder like she hadn't just spent the past 3 nights sneaking off into lies. And I let her, because part of me was still hoping this was all some misunderstanding, that maybe I was tired. Tired and paranoid and reading too much into everything. But that night, after she fell asleep, I took her phone again. Not to check messages. I had a new plan. I activated her location history, synced it to my email. A quiet trick I learned from a YouTube video posted by a man who also got cheated on and turned into a reluctant tech expert. I wanted to track her next move. Not confront. Not accuse. Not yet. I needed to see for myself where she went when she said she was at yoga or grabbing drinks with coworkers. I needed to follow the breadcrumb trail while she was still arrogant enough to think she hadn't been caught. And 2 days later, when she told me she had to stay late for a team training, I watched the little dot on the map leave downtown and start heading east. Past the city. Past the houses. Right toward that same warehouse from the map. That's when I knew this wasn't about love. Or lust. This wasn't even about Dalton anymore. Something was happening there, and whatever it was, it had nothing to do with a birthday party. It was raining that night. Not hard. Not dramatic. just enough to make the windshield wipers squeak every few seconds like an annoying heartbeat. She had left the house in a hurry, claiming she had an off-site client consultation, which was the kind of vague, fancy phrase you only use when you want someone to stop asking questions. I told her to drive safe. She didn't kiss me goodbye. 10 minutes after she left, I followed her, quietly, 2 blocks behind. I know that sounds pathetic, and maybe it is, but by this point, shame was just background noise. I was fully submerged. All that mattered was the dot on my phone screen moving slowly toward the far side of the city. I tailed her like a shadow no one asked for. The warehouse sat on the edge of a crumbling industrial park, surrounded by rusted fences and gravel lots. It looked abandoned. No signs, no branding, just a single dim security light flickering above a side door. Her car was parked off to the side, near a pile of shipping pallets. I killed my headlights, parked down the block, and walked the rest of the way in the rain. As I approached, I realized how quiet everything was. No other cars, no voices, not even the hum of nearby traffic. Just the occasional buzz of that flickering light above the door and the sound of water dripping from a cracked gutter. I didn't expect the door to be unlocked, but it was. Not wide open, just slightly cracked, enough for me to press it gently with 2 fingers and slip inside like I didn't belong there. I held my breath, every nerve in my body screaming at me to turn back. But I didn't. The inside of the warehouse wasn't what I expected. It wasn't empty or dusty or filled with boxes. It was arranged, staged, almost clinical, like a pop-up studio or temporary event space. Clean floors, a few chairs against the wall, large floodlights hanging from above, and in the center, a ring of folding tables covered in electronics. Cameras, laptops, lights, microphones. There were 4 people inside. Talia was one of them. She stood with her back to me, dressed differently than when she left the house. Black hoodie, leggings, hair pulled back tight. The kind of outfit you wear when you don't want to be recognized. She was talking to a man who I assumed was Dalton, but again, it didn't match the image I had in my head. He wasn't some seductive pretty boy. He looked average. 40-something, balding slightly, with glasses and a nervous posture. They weren't touching. They weren't flirting. They were watching something on a monitor. I couldn't see the screen from my angle, but whatever it was had all of their attention. Then I heard it, faint but unmistakable. Her voice, coming from the monitor, recorded, replayed, over and over. She was talking about me. He doesn't suspect anything. He thinks I'm working late. I say a few keywords, and he shuts down. Guilt is a very useful tool if you use it right. One of the other men chuckled. Dalton, or whoever he was, said something I'll never forget. If he's already tracking you, he's reacting exactly like we hoped. Document every move. That's when my blood turned cold. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't cheating. This was a test. And I was the subject. I backed out of the doorway as quietly as I could. Got in my car. Drove 3 blocks before I pulled over and threw up into a gas station trash can. My heart was racing, my hands shaking. My brain couldn't process it. They were recording her. She was recording me. And I had no idea who any of them really were. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the bathroom floor with the lights off, phone in hand, replaying her voice in my head. Not the one I married. The one from the recording. Cold. Clinical. Studying me like I was a lab rat running a maze I didn't even know existed. I started remembering little things. Things I had ignored or dismissed. The way she always left her phone face down, even when alone. The week she said her company was doing psychological safety training. The random surveys she asked me to fill out for her team. The camera I found in our bookshelf last month and assumed was just one of my old webcams. God, I never asked why it was pointing at the couch. And now, the worst thought of all. What if I wasn't the only one? What if this was bigger than just a betrayal? What if my wife wasn't my wife anymore? Or maybe never was at all? For the first time since this began, I didn't eat for an entire day. Not because I was trying to punish myself or make a statement. My body just stopped asking for food. I sat in the corner of our living room with the lights off, blinds down, and all the electronics unplugged. I didn't know what was watching me anymore. The laptop? My phone? The weird LED bulb she insisted on installing in the bedroom last fall. Everything felt like a one-way mirror. I had become the prisoner in my own life, watching the people who were supposed to love me take notes on how I broke. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. Not when I didn't even know what to accuse her of. Adultery? Emotional manipulation? Psychological experimentation? None of it made sense on its own. And still, somewhere in this storm of confusion and betrayal, a part of me clung to the smallest hope that maybe this could be fixed. That maybe it was some twisted mistake. That maybe the person I married still existed under whatever mask she'd been wearing. But that illusion cracked the next morning. She left early, said she had a team brunch. Didn't ask if I wanted to come. Just walked out the door wearing perfume she hadn't touched in months. I waited exactly 6 minutes, then went upstairs and opened the small lockbox she kept in her closet. She thought I didn't know about it. I'd seen her open it once 2 years ago when she needed an old passport. She thought I forgot. I didn't. I picked the lock with a steak knife and a flathead screwdriver. It took 12 minutes, a chipped thumbnail, and all of my remaining self-respect. Inside, there were 3 things. A small black notebook, an unmarked flash drive, and a second driver's license with a different name. The picture was her. Same face, same eyes, same carefully shaped eyebrows, but the name said Clarice Winter. Born in Ohio. Address listed in Maryland. No mention of California, no trace of the person I thought I knew. I sat down on the floor, knees up, heart pounding, and opened the notebook. The first few pages were filled with strange notes, fragments of conversations, timestamps, emotional responses logged like behavioral data. My name appeared over and over again, often next to phrases like reaction within expected range, low resistance to social shame triggers, and susceptible to isolation response models. It wasn't a journal. It was a case study, and I was the subject. My chest went cold. My name, circled. Dates. Specific quotes I'd said in the past year. Even things I didn't remember saying. Then, about halfway through the notebook, a paragraph that stopped me cold. He was selected because of the event in 2012. Quiet. Unresolved trauma tends to slow resistance patterns. Lack of parental connection, stagnant career path, no active community involvement. Ideal candidate for low-profile subject testing. High potential for compliant deterioration under pressure. 2012. I had to reread that 3 times before it clicked. She knew. She knew about the thing I never talked about. The thing I only told one person, one time, during a therapy session I went to and never returned. The accident. The guilt. How it hollowed me out for years and made me easy to love, but even easier to lie to. And somehow, she had it documented. In her case notes. This wasn't cheating. This wasn't an affair. This was targeted, premeditated, engineered. I plugged the flash drive into my old offline laptop, the one I never connected to the internet. There were folders named with strange code numbers, but one folder stood out. W subject, H42. My initials. Inside, dozens of audio files. Recordings. Not just of her voice, of mine. Phone calls. Conversations from the kitchen. Private moments I couldn't even remember having, let alone agreeing to record. There were transcripts too, labeled by date, tagged with emotional triggers, cross-referenced with my reactions. And in the most recent file, dated just last week, a single line of typed text. Threshold response approaching. Phase 2 can begin if no contact detected from external observers. What did that mean? Phase 2. Who were the external observers? Was this a company? A cult? Some kind of clinical trial buried under layers of false paperwork and fake brunches? I closed the laptop and just sat there in silence. All the blood in my body had gone somewhere else. I couldn't feel my hands. Couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't even cry anymore. Just breathe, shallow and fast like I was trying not to drown. And then I heard the front door. She was home. Early. I shoved everything back into the box, locked it, slid it back into place, and threw myself onto the bed like I'd been asleep. She walked in, phone in hand, smiling like nothing had changed. "Hey babe," she said, "you okay? You look pale." And I swear to God, she winked at me. Not in a flirty way, not in a loving way, in a knowing way. After she winked at me, I didn't move for a full minute. I just laid there, eyes half closed, pretending to wake up. But inside my skull, everything was turning, spinning. My thoughts weren't thoughts anymore, they were alarms. Flashing red warnings banging against the inside of my head. She knew. She knew I'd been in the box. She knew I'd read the notebook, seen the fake ID, heard the recordings. That wink wasn't a bluff. It wasn't a smirk. It was confirmation. She had wanted me to see it. Or, at the very least, She had calculated that the odds of me breaking soon were high enough that it no longer mattered. And still, she sat on the edge of the bed like nothing had changed. She scrolled her phone, made some offhand joke about a meme, asked if I wanted to get sushi that night. I nodded. I even smiled. But I wasn't there anymore. That afternoon, when she left again, this time to pick up dry cleaning, even though neither of us had worn anything worth dry cleaning in months, I went back to the flash drive. I copied everything. Every recording, every transcript, every weird internal note about my habits and triggers. I backed it all up to a portable SSD, encrypted it, and uploaded a compressed version to a dummy cloud account I created under a fake name. Then I did something dangerous. I contacted someone I hadn't spoken to in 7 years. His name was Ethan, and he used to run an investigative blog that specialized in uncovering shady corporate experiments, whistleblower cases, tech leaks. He quit after a cease and desist from a medical conglomerate nearly destroyed his life. Last I heard, he'd moved off-grid, got sober, and was restoring vintage guitars somewhere in Montana. I still had his signal number. I sent him a message. It's Harold. I think I'm part of something. I have files. Need help. It's not just her. They're watching me. He didn't reply for 4 hours. Then, call me. Now. When I did, his voice was quieter than I remembered. Raspy. Slower. I'm going to ask you a question, he said. And I want you to take 5 seconds before you answer it. Do you remember a guy named Ben Ward? I froze. Not just mentally, physically. My entire body locked up. Ben Ward. He was a guy I knew back in grad school. Quiet, smart, a little too obsessed with pattern recognition. Used to joke that his girlfriend was too perfect to be real. He dropped out halfway through the second year. No warning. Just disappeared. Everyone assumed he had a breakdown. I hadn't thought about Ben in over a decade. Yeah, I said. Why? Ethan exhaled slowly. Because his name showed up in a leak I got before I shut down the site. He filed a sealed report in 2014. Said he thought his partner was involved in long-term behavioral testing. That he found surveillance equipment hidden in their apartment. Audio logs. Trigger tests. Personality shaping. My throat went dry. What happened to him? Nobody knows. He vanished 6 weeks after submitting the report. Mia? No record. No job. No credit activity. Nothing. It's like he was erased. Silence hung between us. I think it's a program, Ethan said finally. And I think your wife is a field agent. A government program? I asked. Worse, he said. Privately funded. No oversight. Built for testing human response under simulated betrayal. It's not about stealing money or secrets. It's about watching how far someone will go when you dismantle their reality piece by piece. I felt sick. She's not cheating, I whispered. No, he replied. She's destroying you. And someone's collecting the data. That night, I didn't eat. Didn't sleep. I pulled up every old receipt, message, GPS ping, calendar invite I could find. I cross-referenced her time away. There was a pattern, one that spanned years. She wasn't just visiting Dale's birthday or staying late for work. There were months of staged encounters, fabricated fights, strategically placed emotional pressure points. I found timestamps on our arguments that matched entries in her notebook. She was provoking me, and I was giving her exactly what she needed every time. And then I found something else. A list, buried inside one of the oldest files on the drive. Labeled, subjects, inactive. 72 names. Some marked as withdrawn. Others labeled uncooperative. 7 marked archived. And 3, including Ben Ward, were tagged terminated. I stared at that word for over an hour. I didn't know what terminated meant. Not officially, but I didn't need a dictionary to guess. And then I saw a final entry. A recent one, dated just days ago. Age 42. Compliance rate declining. Timeline accelerating. Risk of emotional destabilization approaching acceptable loss. Monitor closely. Prepare final cycle. My code. Age 42. Harold. Final cycle. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about betrayal or surveillance or notes on a clipboard. This was ending soon, and I didn't know if I was meant to survive it. I didn't sleep that night. Not even an hour. I sat in the hallway outside our bedroom door, laptop open on my knees, watching that last entry over and over again. Prepare final cycle. It echoed in my skull like a countdown I couldn't see. Talia, or Clarice, or whatever her name really was, slept peacefully, like a wolf curled in cashmere. her breathing steady, rhythmic, innocent even. At 6:03 a.m., she stirred. I heard her footsteps cross the bedroom floor. The door opened slowly, just enough for her to peek out. "You okay, babe?" she asked, rubbing her eyes, pretending she wasn't a ghost in someone else's skin. I nodded, forced a smile. My face felt like clay. "I'm just thinking." She looked at me a second longer than she needed to, then went to brush her teeth. I knew what the next step was. I was either going to disappear like the others, or I was going to break the cycle. So I made a choice. I put on the oldest clothes I could find, the ones with holes in the sleeves and paint on the collar, grabbed my SSD drive, my backup drive, and a printed copy of every log. I stuffed them into a duffel bag and walked out the front door without a word. I went straight to the train station. Not the airport, too easy to track. I bought a ticket to a small town 6 hours north, paid in cash, and switched trains halfway. Then I used an old burner phone to message Ethan. "I'm out. Meet me." We met in a diner off the highway. He looked older than I remembered, but calmer, like someone who had lived with ghosts long enough to name them. He took the bag, scanned a few of the documents, and nodded slowly. "You did it," he said. "Not yet," I replied. He smiled faintly. "You will." That same week, he sent the files to 3 journalists, 2 anonymous sources, and an international human rights watchdog based in Sweden. I don't know which one leaked it first, but within days the story was everywhere. Project Winter exposed. A covert psychological behavior testing ring disguised through fake relationships, fabricated identities, and emotional field trials designed to observe human trust erosion. I wasn't named in the story. Neither was Talia. But I didn't need the spotlight. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy. She disappeared before the fallout hit. I came home one morning after laying low at a friend's house and found the apartment cleared out. Every drawer, every shelf. Gone. No note. No scent of her perfume. No camera lenses behind picture frames. Just an empty bed and a silence I could finally trust. I filed a police report just to feel normal, but I knew better. She was already somewhere else. Probably with a new name. A new subject. Another test. But this time, one of them didn't break. I got a new phone. New number. Deleted all my old social accounts. Changed the locks. Changed the layout of the apartment. Even changed my walking route to the store. Slowly, I started reclaiming my own mind. And here's the crazy part. I'm better. I'm actually better. Not healed. No one walks away from something like that without carrying a limp, but awake. Clear. Not sleepwalking through life. Not waiting for permission to speak or be heard. Ethan offered me a job, actually. Said he could use someone with my eye for details, my newfound paranoia. I told him I'd think about it. For now, I'm just learning how to live again. I started painting. Bad landscapes. Ugly sunsets. They're awful, but they're mine. I take long walks with spoons. I talk to people again. Not many, just enough. And sometimes, when the wind hits just right, I remember that moment in the hallway. That line on the screen. Prepare, final cycle. It was meant to be the end. But it wasn't. It was my beginning.